This is Larry Jordan, the host of the Digital Production Buzz. The following interview is an excerpt from a recent program. To hear the entire program, visit digitalproductionbuzz.com. Mike Mihalik is a computer industry veteran working with digital storage systems for the creative, media, and entertainment industries. He was previously the Vice President of Engineering and Operations at LaCie, where he worked for more than 20 years. Mike has created award-winning products for both LaCie and Seagate for both Microsoft Windows and Apple Macintosh computers. Hello, Mike. Welcome.
Hi, Larry. How are you?
We're doing much better now that we get to hear your voice. Mike, you've been in this industry for a long time. Before we talk about the future, tell us about your background and some of the companies you've worked with.
Real simple. Tektronix set me up for everything I know, and then LaCie for about 20 years, and then Seagate for the last 3.
What is it that got you interested in storage in the first place?
I'm a vast consumer of storage.
As we all are.
But did that start in college, or did it start sooner? I mean, was there something that, I've been a consumer of storage for years and years, but that doesn't necessarily make me an engineer.
So I've always worked with computers, and I had some of the first hard drives way back in the 70s when they were a bit expensive. I think a 20 megabyte hard drive was over $1,000, my first one. And the way I got into the storage industry was I got tired of test and measurement and wanted to get into something that was a little bit more. So I'd left Tektronix, took a little bit of a sabbatical, and one of the people I worked with at Tektronix had started a company called Cameraman Labs. I don't know if you remember that, but it was when you put hard disk on a card and plugged it into PCs. And also the PC clone business. And he had called me one day asking about some references, some people that worked for me. And after he talked to me, he said, instead of hiring those guys, why don't I just hire you? So those guys are still friends of mine, so they didn't hold it against me. So anyway, I came in to fix problems with some storage products that Cameraman Labs and LaCie had, and I guess the rest is history.
Which gets me to what at the time that you left LaCie, what were your responsibilities?
I worked on super secret projects with Apple, HP, Microsoft, and Intel.
Aside from the super secret projects, before when you were doing general stuff, what were you in development, helping develop the storage, or give me a clue?
Okay, so what I had concentrated on in more recent memory is what's going to be the next storage interface, what's going to be the next thing that we need to worry about. Not so much commodity products, but bleeding edge kinds of things. So I brought SCSI was, when I started the business, it was SCSI. But some of the early products in USB, I can remember going to Apple and showing them that USB was possible for something more than just keyboard and mice. I can remember a vivid demo. I showed how to boot a Macintosh with a USB 1 drive.
Oh, my
a little
goodness.
Slow, but it worked. But they didn't think it was possible, but it turned out I knew the engineers in the driver group. They put a latent capability in, and I showed them what was possible. Then we did the same thing with FireWire and eSATA and SATA products, and more recently Thunderbolt. So I dragged the company kicking and screaming into the Thunderbolt technology, as well as the latest USB 3, and we're on the cusp of some radical changes in the industry right now.
You said you had to drag the company into the Thunderbolt. You had to drag him into it? You had to talk him into it?
Yes.
Good Lord, there was so much good press on Thunderbolt.
No. This is before there was press.
Oh,
this is after it was announced.
If you read those underground papers about the stuff that is coming up, there was so much good talk about Thunderbolt.
Yeah, so it wasn't called Thunderbolt. What was it called?
Whatever it was called. Yeah.
Yes.
Peak.
Oh, Lightpeak. That's right.
That was the Intel name for it.
Right. So anyway, as you know, sometimes these technologies, there might be rumors, but you can't really design a product on rumors. So I guess through some finagling and some clever resource allocation, we were able to go ahead and demonstrate a Thunderbolt product when it was actually announced.
Well, I want to talk about this because in every case, the examples that you've been talking about, USB 1, USB 2, FireWire 400, FireWire 800, eSATA, SCSI, all of these
That's the history of storage.
are interfaces. They're not hard disks. So it sounds like you've been much more involved with the connection of storage to the computer than the storage itself.
That's correct, yes. LaCie wasn't a hard drive company. We were using products from Hitachi and IBM and Western Digital and Seagate, as well as a few other companies that probably aren't around anymore. So the thing is those are products that a lot of different industry uses, and there's no way that a company like LaCie or anybody for that matter that's not a disk drive manufacturer is going to create the next hard drive. So the challenge for a company like LaCie and the other companies that are doing that is how do you bring that capability to the user and make it easy to use?
One of the questions that I get asked a lot, and now I want to shift into the future, is media creators are trying to figure out, do they want to work with USB 3 drives or Thunderbolt drives? And if they're working with Thunderbolt, should they look at Thunderbolt 1 or Thunderbolt 2? Now, I have an opinion on this, but I want to find out if my opinion is correct. If you were to recommend for people that are doing audio and video work, what should they work with? Thunderbolt on Macintoshes, Thunderbolt or USB? Or does it not make a difference?
I don't think it makes too much of a difference. What really is most important is what works and what works reliably well. And let me just go ahead and run through the pros and cons of each one. USB 3 will do the job if you have the right computer and you have the right OS and you have the right drive and if you have the right protocol inside. And it's more than just the connector. If you look at, there's a wide range of USB 3 products in the market today, but the real question is which ones will work and which ones won't. There's no real easy way to do unless you get into the rocket scientist mode and look at something called UASP, which is basically a SCSI protocol over USB, and that gives the best performance. And the layman way of looking at that is if you find a product, a hard drive product, for example, that can go over 100 megabytes per second, it's a good one. If you find an SSD USB 3 product that does over 300 megabytes per second, it's a good one. If any of the reviews or benchmarks show performance less than that, you will have problems likely. Thunderbolt, on the other hand, is guaranteed bandwidth, and it's a much tighter specification. If someone wants to make a Thunderbolt product, they just can't design it. They have to get it actually certified by a consortium of independent test labs, Intel, and Apple to make sure that it works correctly. And only when that certification is granted can it actually be sold in the marketplace. USB 3 doesn't have that same sort of control, and that's probably one of the main limitations of USB 3 is you don't know what you're getting until after the fact. With Thunderbolt, you're getting some guarantee of interoperability and some guarantee that if you plug it in, it's going to work.
There's 3 different versions of Thunderbolt. There's Thunderbolt 1 and Thunderbolt 2, and the announced Thunderbolt 3, which is not yet released. From a storage point of view, does it really make a difference which of these Thunderbolts we're working with? And if so, at what point? In other words, how many hard disks in the RAID do we need for us to really pay attention to the different protocols?
Okay. In the simplest sense, Thunderbolt 1 or Thunderbolt 2 will work for any single hard drive. The hard drive itself is too slow and never really taxes the interface. So from that standpoint, if you have one hard drive, if you look at a modern hard drive today, it's 100 to 200 megabytes per second for a single drive. If you stripe them together in a RAID 0, you might get 300 to 350. So Thunderbolt 1 is more than adequate for that. If you wanted to take advantage of the Thunderbolt 2 speeds, it has the peak capability of something like 1,400 megabytes per second.
Thunderbolt 2.
Thunderbolt 2.
Okay, just making sure I hear correctly.
Right. So Thunderbolt 2 can go that fast. And the question is, how many drives does it take to get up to that speed, striped together or rated together? Let's see. One of the last projects we worked on, we had something called the 8-big. It's a 1U rack that has 8 200 megabyte per second drives in it, and it could easily deliver 1.1, 1.2 megabytes per second, but it's still not using the full capability of Thunderbolt 2.
Wow.
To get that, you need some special SSDs.
And with SSDs, can I get faster than, say, 1,300 megabytes a second? Or is 1,300 really the limit of Thunderbolt 2?
1375 is the limit of Thunderbolt 2 in the current implementations.
What should we, now let's shift completely into the future. What should we expect in the near term in terms of interfaces and storage technology?
So USB 3.1, you've heard bandied about over the last 6 months. And am I frozen?
Nope. Keep going. We hear you loud and clear.
Okay. USB 3.1, which had a nice rollout over the last 6 months, but no real product shipping. There's a bit of confusion. There's a USB 3.1 Gen 1 and a USB 3.1 Gen 2. I don't create the names. I only recite them. USB 3.1 Gen 1 is basically USB 3 with the opportunity for a different connector, the Type-C connector. Mm-hmm. Apple is shipping the new really sexy MacBook that does that, but the performance is no better than a USB 3 drive. USB 3.1 Gen 2 is this new 10 gigabit per second interface, and that's the same speed as Thunderbolt 1. So for most single drive solutions, whether it's an SSD or hard drive, the new USB 3.1 offers a little bit of room for improvement, but only if you use 2 or more drives in a striped configuration. What's more interesting about what's on the horizon, USB 3.1 introduced a new connector called the Type-C connector. And that's where things get exciting. It basically combines a single reversible connector that's rugged and reliable. The only thing it's lacking is a locking capability. There's no way to lock the connector into the plug when you connect it. So some of the video people aren't going to be too happy about that. But in essence, what you have is a connector that's more robust. It's learned from 10 years of problems to basically come up with a high-speed connector that's not only good for Thunderbolt 1, Thunderbolt 2, and the new USB 3.1, it has better power handling capabilities. And for what was announced when Thunderbolt 3 actually ships, up to a 40 gigabit per second interface capability.
Mm. Now, you're speaking at the Flash conference sometime in the next day or two. What are you talking on? What's your subject?
So I'm actually the moderator, so I get to ask the hard questions of all of my panel members. But I think what we have is we got the America's president of Blackmagic Design, Larry O'Connor, who's the founder and president of OWC, Steve Eisen, who you'll be talking to later today, and another gentleman, Steve Feldstein. We're all going to talk about what storage is being useful today, and I'm going to interject with what's missing. And maybe I can help fill in the blanks.
Well, we are going to look forward to a report on that, and we'll bring you back to give us a detailed story of what is missing. And Mike, thank you so much for joining us. I look forward to chatting with you again in the future.
Thanks,
all right,
Mike.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.